Do you want to live an extraordinary life? Are you someone who doesn't want to settle for just average, middle of the road, mediocre? Do you have ambitious goals? If so, then this video is for you, because here I want to share with you what I've discovered about the importance of having the right kind of ambitious goals and how to use them to give you drive and motivation and to give you fuel to change your life. And I also want to share with you what I learned about having the wrong kind of ambitious goals.
This new Lamborghini here.
And how that can backfire. When you understand the 3 key lessons I'm going to share with you in this video, it puts you in a position where you can use ambitious goals as a tool and get the most out of them. Now, to get started, let me share with you 3 ambitious goals that I'm currently pursuing. And I invite you to simply listen to them and note any reaction that you might have to them. And we'll get back to that later. So, example goal number 1. I want to build the Ikario village. I have this vision of building the ultimate retreat center somewhere out in a beautiful spot in nature where we have everything needed to create the best possible growth experiences for people. I want to create a place where we can run workshops and retreats that are the best ever at just changing people's lives in a positive way. That is one of my goals. Example number 2 is a financial goal. I want to achieve a personal net worth of $100 million. And example number 3 is a health and fitness related goal. I want to achieve a 100-day streak of exercising every single day with no interruptions. So let's use these 3 examples to guide us through the 3 key lessons that I'm about to share with you. But before we do that, let's just cover the very, very basics. Why have ambitious goals to begin with? Well, having clearly defined goals is useful because it gives you direction. It gives you something to aim for. And the goals need to be ambitious, which is to say they need to be out of reach, because otherwise there's no personal growth to be had. If you set a goal that is so easy for you to accomplish that you don't have to leave your comfort zone to do so, then, well, you're not going to grow, you're not going to change as a person or learn anything new. So that's why ambitious goals are a useful personal growth tool. And here are the 3 key lessons for getting the most out of them. Key lesson number 1 is find the right amount of out of reachness. A goal works best to give you that drive and motivation when it is out of reach, but not too far out of reach so that it just feels impossible and hopeless. Because if you have a goal that just seems impossible, it can actually backfire and do the opposite. It can make you feel overwhelmed, and instead of being something that makes you jump out of bed in the morning to get after, it can make you feel like, oh, what's the point? Why even try? So that's when a goal is too far out of reach. And on the other hand, of course, if it's too within reach, if it's too easy, then again, you won't be driven, you won't be motivated to go after it. So you really have to find that sweet spot of just the right amount of out of reachness. In my own life, I started out with basically no goals at all, because when I was younger, I just felt like a loser and like I was destined to fail at everything. So, why even try to set a goal? And so the first big difference came for me when I actually dared to set ambitious goals at all. Like I said before, it finally gave me direction, it finally gave me something to aim for and to push myself for. But initially, when I started as an entrepreneur, my ambitious goal was just, well, can I build a business that generates enough income for me to live off of? That was enough out of reach for me. It seemed almost impossible, but at the same time, I could look around and say, well, a lot of people start businesses, and yes, many of them fail, but many of them succeed, and they're not all like total outlier geniuses. Clearly, this is possible, and maybe if I do things really well, if I try really hard, maybe I can get there. That alone made a huge difference. But then what happened is that later in my journey, I reached and then exceeded all of the goals I had set for myself earlier, and it put me in this strange spot of, now what? And it really did reduce my drive and motivation quite significantly. What I was lacking was a new goal that had the right amount of out of reachness. So let's talk about the financial example here. $100 million in personal net worth. Why did I set this example for myself? Well, for me, for where I am right now, that goal is the right amount of out of reachness. See, if I told myself I want to achieve $1 billion in net worth, That just feels impossible, totally out of reach, no idea how to get there. That would not be a useful goal. If I set myself the goal of, I want to have $20 million in personal net worth, well, even though that's also out of reach, I'm not there yet. That's the kind of goal that wouldn't really force me to do anything new or try anything harder. Probably if I just keep doing what I've been doing for the last few years, I'd get there. For me, $100 million is that sweet spot. It is out of reach enough that I really have to consider how am I going to get there? And I really have to do things differently and push harder. But at the same time, I can see that if I play my cards right, if I become an excellent player of the game, this is possible. Similarly, let's talk about the fitness goal. I could set a goal for myself to say, I want to improve my physique. I want to look like Arnold did at his peak. And that would be too far out of reach. I mean, no amount of training and steroids and other modifications I could do will ever make me look like that. It's just not going to happen. So that would not be a useful goal. On the other side, I could tell myself, well, I'm a bit out of shape. I want to get back in shape, back to my peak form. But that's not that exciting. That's basically too easy. That's too within reach. I set the goal of 100 days of uninterrupted exercise every day because it addresses a key problem that I've had. You see, it's not like I've stopped exercising altogether. I'm always exercising in one way or another. But what I've really lacked in the last year or so is consistency. And more often than not, I will start training and then I will get injured or I will get sick or something else gets in the way and I fall off and then I restart again and so on. This has been a real problem. So a 100-day exercise streak means that I have to develop the exact thing I'm missing, consistency. And it also means that I have to take care of my overall health better than I have because I have to make sure that I don't get injured and I don't get ill for 100 days in a row. This for me is a very actionable goal, and it is in that sweet spot of I'm going to have to push myself to do this. It's been a long time since I've had an exercise streak like this, but I know I can do it. Now think back to how you reacted when I told you my 3 different example goals. And maybe one of your reactions was, these goals are very different in scope. I mean, $100 million in personal net worth, it seems like a much bigger goal than 100 days of exercise. What's going on here? And this is also an important lesson. You have to find your sweet spot for where you are right now. Someone else's goals are very unlikely to work for you. It all depends on where you're starting from and where that sweet spot is for you. If you're starting as an entrepreneur or a creator, for example, then maybe your perfect out-of-reach goal is to make your first $1,000. And that's a great point to start. And there's no point in thinking, oh, someone else has $1 million or $100 million or whatever goal, and I should have that too. The point is, find the right goal that gives you the right amount of drive and motivation and makes you crush it. Key lesson number 2, selfless goals versus selfish goals. Once again, think about how you reacted when I told you about my goal of achieving $100 million in personal net worth. Maybe your reaction was like, oh, that seems like a selfish, greedy, kind of gross. It's kind of gross because who in the hell needs that much money? And maybe you're thinking, isn't it better to have selfless goals? Isn't it better to have goals that aren't just about me? And you're absolutely right. But what I've learned is that you need both. You need selfish goals and you need selfless goals. Here are the benefits of having selfless goals, of having something you strive for that is about something greater than yourself. First, it can give you drive and motivation in difficult times, whereas if you only have selfish goals, if you're doing something only for yourself, and you really don't feel like it today, then you can just say, well, nothing's on the line. It's not for anyone else, so I'm just not going to do it today. But if you're doing it for someone else, if you're working for a greater purpose, then that makes it easier for you to get up in the morning anyway, to go after it anyway, to still be motivated even on a bad day. Secondly, research from the field of positive psychology shows that people who have goals that go beyond themselves also experience greater life satisfaction. You'll basically find more meaning and more satisfaction in life if you do things that go beyond yourself. So even just for the purpose of improving your own well-being, it is worth having selfless goals. But selfish goals that are only about you are also important. And here's why. Well, first, here's a big one. The goals that you pursue have to be things that you actually really want. Not goals that someone else wants for you, like pursuing the career path that your parents want for you instead of the one that you want for yourself. And not goals that you think other people think you should be pursuing. So where you're basically performing for other people's approval. This, even if you end up reaching those goals, always leads to regret. But more likely, you will just not have the drive and motivation to achieve goals that you don't really want. Secondly, consider your shadow side. We all have this. You are a human animal and you have all kinds of primal needs and desires. And many of these are selfish. You maybe have the desire to win, the desire to be better than others, the desire to have money, the desire to have sex, even just the desire to feel good. These are all selfish goals and they don't feel noble, but these are deeply rooted desires. And if you spend a lot of time and energy trying to suppress these and push them down and pretend they don't exist, that generally doesn't work. That's generally futile. So instead of doing that, it is much more useful to, number one, acknowledge that you have these desires and needs, acknowledge that there are things that you want that are just selfish. And number two, find some overlap between your selfish goals and your selfless goals so that you can drive both at the same time. For example, the goal of building the Ikario village, this retreat, this is a mostly selfless goal. This is something I'm doing for other people, and I want to create this space that brings loads of value to other people. But at the same time, if I succeed at doing this, it's going to be financially successful. So it is an overlap between selfless and selfish goals, and that works much better than if you have only one or only the other. In my own experience, I've also noticed this because for me, it's generally not difficult to have selfless goals. In fact, a lot of my time and energy is spent on thinking about other people, thinking about how can I help and support people who work for me, how can I build things that bring value to other people, and so on and so forth. Lots and lots of my time and energy is spent on this. And what I realized is that it was like draining in a way, and it was almost like I was going lost. There was almost like none of me left. And that also made me less effective and took away that motivation and drive. And this is why I brought in this personal financial goal, which is just for me, and my personal fitness and health goal, which is just for me. It helps balance out my goals that are not about me, that are for a greater purpose. Key lesson number 3 is about staying hungry without feeling inadequate. So many of us experience a lot of drive when we're in a really crappy situation. Maybe you're broke or you're deep in debt and just really fed up with your financial situation. You have this hunger and this drive to go after it and change your financial situation. Or it can be, your health, your fitness, your social life, whatever it is. When we come from a place of like deep lack or pain, it's easy to use that as fuel to motivate change. But if we keep relying on that, it becomes a trap. Because of course you can be dissatisfied with your financial situation because you're broke, and then you drive to make more money, but now you've got some money and now you're deeply dissatisfied because you're not a millionaire yet. And so you have this deep drive to make more money. And now you've made millions and you're still totally dissatisfied and you feel poor and you feel like a loser because you're not a billionaire. And yes, maybe if you can keep tapping into that, you constantly make yourself feel like shit, you constantly feel inadequate, and that helps you achieve higher and higher goals. But hold on, what's the point here? You're constantly miserable, you're constantly feeling bad. And I think we can all agree that the goal is not to die as a miserable, self-loathing billionaire. So let's not get stuck in that trap. But the question is, how can we remain hungry and driven without always having to feel inadequate, without always having to feel like I'm not good enough and I need to do better? The key to resolving this dilemma is to essentially treat life like a video game and treat your goals like high scores in a video game. Because think about it, you can be playing a video game and you can be totally engaged and really go after it. You really want to set a better lap time, defeat this boss, set a high score, whatever it is. But all the while, you're perfectly aware that this is just a game. You're perfectly aware that this is not a matter of life or death, and that it doesn't make you a bad or inadequate person if you don't beat the high score. When it comes to video games, most of us have no problem striking that balance. Like, we can be totally into it, go after it hard, while not taking it very seriously. And this is how I recommend you look at your life goals as well. For the example goals I gave, this applies to all of them, because none of these goals are things that I need to do. Like, do I need to build the Ikario village? No, it's something I choose to do with my time. It's a mission that I've set for myself, but I don't have to. Do I need to be in better shape? Do I need to be fitter and healthier? No, I'm already fairly fit and healthy. but I choose to play this game. I want to get better at this game. And of course, the same is true with money as well. We talked about also the selfish goal, why 100 million? Because yes, nobody needs that amount of money. There's nothing I need $100 million for. But money is like the points that you get in the game of entrepreneurship and investing. And I want to be better at that game. I want to improve my skill at this game. Just like in a video game, it's more fun to keep playing at a higher difficulty level than just go back to level 1 and just smash through everything because it's way too easy now. Like, that's not fun. So I choose to keep increasing the difficulty level, to keep the challenge going and to keep playing the game. But at the same time, I can do that without hating myself. I don't hate my physique. I don't feel poor. I don't have any kind of self-loathing that I need as a driver or a motivator to get after higher goals. So in summary, these are the 3 lessons about how to use ambitious goals to your advantage. Number 1, find that sweet spot of the right amount of out of reachness for where you are right now and for your goals. Number 2, don't think of selfish goals as bad and selfless goals as good. Instead, find a balance between both of them. And number 3, play life like a video game so you can be hungry without feeling inadequate. If you want to learn more about this, ambition is part of the SAGA Framework for getting your life together, and a link to that video so you can watch that whole video and see how ambition fits in with 3 other components. Plus, if you want to learn more about this idea of the ikario village, we recorded the podcast episode on that, and I'll link to that as well. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite takeaway from this video? And what are you going to do to optimize your own ambitious goals and get more drive? Let me know by leaving a comment.